What's up, guys? Tyler here, Western States Farrier Service. Tell people behind the camera. Shout out there. Here we are talking about a horse that's got a slight high-low, and I want to go over today on how you balance a high-low, and in my interpretation, basically equalize your palmar angles using measurements and no X-rays. This is something that that is always difficult, and I feel like is always a hard thing to get. But I feel like the system of using some measurements on toe length and where your heels intersect the shoe can be kind of a cheat code to it, and hopefully help somebody get a high and low balance to each other as close as possible without X-rays. So this is a great example of this mare. If we look down and we see on her feet, we've got a slight high and low going here. This right front closest to us, this is our low heel. And if you actually look at her stance right now, she's telling you which one's the low and which one's the high. That front left over there is back up underneath her body a little bit, and this one is out in front of her, and that tells me this is, amongst other things, but this is our low heel, and that right there is our high heel. So I want to show you on my trim sequence how I can use measurements to make these palmar angles fairly close to the same without an X-ray, because we don't have an X-ray truck or an X-ray machine in the truck. We don't have that luxury. So using this system, I found it to be fairly effective. So this horse lives in pads. This particular foot actually keeps a wedge pad on. I feel that per angles, it helps tremendously. That foot over there being the high heel stays in a flat pad. So that's the blue tint, is the copper sulfate that I treat my horses with. She's actually been quite a while on the schedule, so we're working with a little bit of foot, which is nice for her. As we can see, I do struggle a little bit with maintaining elevation in the back half with heel positioned on this mare and structure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the toe length of this foot. And like I've gone over before, the measurements are kind of arbitrary. They don't really matter. But we're looking at 4 inches on this foot. I always start on the low heel because the low heel is the constant and can only go so short, and the high heel actually can be shortened up in the toe more than this one. So in order to balance these coffin bones and make the palmar angles the same, I need to be very attentive to my lengths of my toes. Okay, we've got a lot of foot here. Now there is some stretching in the lamina, so I'm not going to take it all from the bottom. I am going to have to collect up some of this foot from the top. Some days I get to take more from the bottom on her. Some days I have to take some from the top. Today's going to be some from the top as well. Leaving a bunch of that sole right there at the apex of the frog for protection. I'm getting decent quality of sole. Double checking my length. I'm already at just under 3 3/4. She does like to be right around that, sometimes a little shorter. I want to check my medial lateral balance. We can get a little bit more off of her. Okay, now here's the trick to balancing the two and remembering. Remembering measurements is key to that. Okay, so we take our toe length, which in this instance is 3 5/8. Now, you can do this with a shoe, but here's another way to do this. So if you come and make a line straight across from your heels, this is called, I reference this as ground surface. And so where those heels come across, we're looking at, call it 5 3/8, I believe is what that is right there. 5 3/8 from the toe to where the heels contact the ground. So let's go to the other foot. Now the key to this is to trim that low heel first, because like I said, that's our constant, and the toe can only get so short from the bottom on that low heel. So now I keep that set of measurements in my head, which was 3 5/8 of toe length, and then 5 3/8 of ground surface is what I call that. So we're going to keep those in play. And along my trim, I'll show you how to achieve that accurately. This is an awesome amount of growth and depth on this foot right here. Okay, we'll get a toe length so we know how much we can take off from the bottom. Oh, which is great. This one's actually 4 1/8. So to help me with my trims and accuracy of my trims, the first thing I'll do on high heel feet, and sometimes on all feet, is I'll get rid of some of my length. And remember, my length is what sticks out in front of the hairline. Depth is what comes from the bottom. Okay, so for the purpose of showing you how this measurement system works, I'm going to leave these heels high to start so that you can see, and it will make sense how this measurements could work. So we're shooting, for the purpose of this film, we're going to shoot for a 3 5/8 toe length for now. And that's a finished dressed length, toe length. And we see a lot of stretching in this lamina right here because this is a high heel. So from the bottom, I'm going to probably leave it alone. I'm going to go to the top now. Yeah, if I can get about a 1/4 inch off the top now by bumping that back. Which now that this lamina is actually coming through the front of my bump, I'll probably take a little bit more from the bottom, but not much. Yep. Take a tiny bit off the bottom here, and that's probably going to be all it is. So I did that with my knife right there, across the toe, because for me that's just a little more accurate. Instead of rasping, I have a tendency to roll my rasp when I'm trying to just rasp the toe. So I know my downfalls. I try and avoid my downfalls. Okay, so now that we have this toe length the same, we're right at 5/8. So now we come back here. Oh man, look at this, is sweet. So our ground surface is almost the same. I'm reading right here 5 1/4. And so all I need to do is I just need to drop these heels down 1/8. So that heel point goes to right where that rasp is contacting that rasp, or sorry, those heels. So really getting after it. Finish up that trim. Now we're going to check our ground surface again. We're going to go from the toe I'm going to pull a line straight across where these heels are, and we're right at 3/8. So in theory, we should have the same palmar angle using those two measurements in both front feet, even though they grew differently from the last time that we shod her, be it high and low. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll get her shod and we'll show the end result. We'll just get the burn aspect at it. Good?
Sir.
Perfect. Gracias. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Beauty. All right, here we are, finished product on this mare. So if we look, the first thing that I'm going to notice on this is that she's standing almost perfectly square in the front end, straight across from each other. I did put a wedge pad on this low heel right here just to elevate that palmar angle just a little bit more because I felt that she needed it after I trimmed her out. Flat pad over there because that's her high heel, naturally higher on their palmar angle. But I'm tickled with today's results. Feel that she's balanced up pretty good now after that setup, but hopefully that rounds out and gives you an idea of how to balance feet without the use of x-rays in terms of palmar angles and other setups. So like and comment and let me know what your thoughts are and if there's other methods that you guys know of, and if you're interested in more info, let me know. Thanks for watching.